Welcome to the Total Soccer Show Weekend Review! Fans left Anfield on Sunday feeling a bit confused because Tottenham visited and they didn't lose. Richarlison struck late and Spurs look stronger, but that's bad news because this means Coutinho might be staying longer. Elsewhere, Man City's title fight is turning into a sham as they couldn't even get 3 points against West Ham, and Chelsea's loss to Newcastle was quite something to see. Maybe next time they shouldn't do their huddles around the referee. On the continent, the leaders in Germany and Italy both drew, while Milan lost to a slightly fascist team in blue. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, hello Taylor Rockwell, how are you?
I am doing very well, Ryan Bailey. Justice for Igor Tudor. Staying longer. Long shall he reign. I love it.
You loving this Tudor reign, then, Taylor? Is it you enjoying it?
I agree with all of the criticism that many have lobbied at him, including on this show. Graham has made astute points. I just enjoy his combative spiciness combined with his pragmatism and no, we weren't good. When he answers questions like that, but then gets into it with reporters over, you've asked me this before, I've told you my answer, let's keep it going. That can often be the death knell for a manager of they're repeating the same answers to the same questions and they're starting to get frustrated. But his level of I don't know what it is, but the vibe is just very much if you ask me this question again, I will take in you. I will Liam Neeson you if you continue to ask me these questions. And you can feel the journalist being okay, I don't want to ask you mean questions anymore. I'm just going to criticize Chelsea's manager and talk about whether or not he should be here next season instead.
I think what happened, Taylor, is he took away Arne Slot's power by confusing him for another bald man.
All right,
you're nothing special.
You referenced this 4 times, and I will admit now, I do not know what you are referring to.
Oh, Ryan, have you seen this clip?
I have seen this.
Yes.
Hello,
so
Graham Ruthven, tell us about it.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I will. So basically, you know how it's customary when the managers come out for the match onto the touchline, they both greet each other, shake hands, how you doing, and then go to their separate ways to the dugouts. Igor Tudor thinks he's doing this for Arne Slot, approaches a bald man from behind him, and as he's shaking his hand, realises, oh, that's not Arne Slot, that's just another bald man. In fact, it was his own player liaison officer, and the fact that I didn't really see anywhere in his eyes that he recognised this man maybe told me something about the way Spurs are run as a club at the moment.
I think maybe I get the impression that Igor Tudor only knows the players on the field and whoever's around the back on the cigarette breaks at the training ground. I think that's right. It.
Yes, dude. That is the vibe. That is the vibe entirely. Who is this guy who's now your goalkeeper coach? Tony. He was in the back with me. We were smoking. He's a good guy.
He knows what's up.
I don't know why I've made him from Brooklyn in this scenario, Igor Tudor, but I have.
There we go. Excellent stuff. This is the weekend review. Before we get to it and all the big games, including Liverpool's match with Spurs and mistaken bald identities, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support us. You'll get bonus episodes, including Weekend Review Extra. All of the weekend we can't get in this main feed, and there's a lot of it, we will get on Weekend Review Extra. We'll get bonus video content. I put a video on there myself this past weekend from my intrepid journeys across the Carolinas. And you get access to our Discord server where all the cool kids are hanging out. And you can get access there to TSS's scouting network. We can assign you a player. You can pick one yourself. You scout them. TSS Scouting Network. The name is on the tin. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. The best way to support us. Please and thank you. All right, let's start off in the Premier League, shall we? At the aforementioned Anfield Stadium, Liverpool won. Tottenham won. Dominic Szoboszlai doing it again from a direct free kick. Another beauty from, I believe that was his 4th of the season so far. But Richarlison, Graham, with the late and, let's say, well-deserved equaliser, shall we?
Yeah, I think it was well-deserved that Spurs got something out of this game. We can debate how it was that they came to be in that position, because I think Liverpool were really quite poor in the second half. But towards the end, and Taylor, you called it, you put it in our Slack chat as we were watching this game, you could sense that a Spurs equaliser was coming, and that's exactly what came to pass. First of all, not to bring the vibe down at all, but I thought this was a really low-quality match, which is something that we have said of a lot of big games in the Premier League this season. This has definitely been a trend. But even by that standard, I thought this was really quite ropey for the most part, where you're wondering where these teams have spent their money with such bad first touches and so many misplaced passes. I know Liverpool haven't been great this season, but I definitely expected to see a more assured performance from them against a shambles of a Spurs side. And for the first half, for a lot of the first half, Liverpool were the better team, right? They weren't completely dominant. But it was clear they were dictating the game, they were having the better of the openings. But as that game went on, Tottenham grew and Liverpool got increasingly edgy, and the game became more of an end-to-end encounter, and that obviously suited Spurs. I thought Liverpool lost control, the control they had in the first half. And so I fully expected this match to be a full-on crisis event for Tottenham. It was reported on, I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday, but David Ornstein for The Athletic reported that Spurs were already lining up or considering shortlisting new managers to replace Igor Tudor. I think they were very much anticipating at the least a comfortable defeat to Liverpool here and then a change of manager. But that's not really something that materialised. And instead, I know a lot of Liverpool fans who are now at the end of their tether with Arne Slot in the way that this team is playing at the moment. So I think it's Duncan Alexander, who people might know as Oily Sailor on Twitter, that used to work for Opta, now works for The Athletic. He's got a tweet that surfaces every so often that's essentially like, the aim of the game in the Premier League is never to be the crisis club at any given moment, and it felt like that torch was maybe just passed on to Liverpool this weekend because, yeah, as I say, there were boos at full time. I think a lot of fans I personally know are unhappy with this team right now.
It is weird how much of like a hot potato grenade that is. Like Carrick has a little bit of a slide. Suddenly the class of '92 are all like, oh, it's my chance to criticize him again. Let's do it. Then they're the crisis club again. But then after the draw this weekend, it's either Liverpool or, as I alluded to earlier, Chelsea. Now apparently also a crisis club again. It's a weird one how fast that can move. It does seem like Igor Tudor bought himself a little bit of breathing room, I think, because this did feel... at least until the next one. But this did feel like a Spurs team that weren't giving up. There was fight here, led by Richarlison. It seemed to be a team that kind of backed themselves to go out and keep making things happen. And even though I agree with you, Graham, the first half they were not the better side, the second half they were. And this is a Spurs team that I believe I'm correct in saying had 2 senior outfield players on the bench for this game, and that was pretty much it. The rest were like youth teamers coming through because they've had so many injuries and so many issues with their squad over the season. So for them to still be fighting and to still pull back a point in this game, it certainly doesn't mean they're safe. It certainly doesn't mean the pressure is off, but it does buy them a couple more days, which is maybe more than they had before this one. And if it helps at all, Graham, I watched Burnley versus Bournemouth this weekend, and let me just tell you, it's not just the big games that have been poor quality.
I know, but you expect those ones to be,
I suppose,
to be dog poo. These ones you want to be the bangers.
Yeah, and this really wasn't. Like Graham has given me too much credit because I wasn't even really predicting a Spurs goal because Spurs were good. I predicted that Liverpool had bet on themselves to concede to Tottenham based on the way they were playing the second half. They just looked like they were sort of like thought they had done enough. And Dominic Szoboszlai, Ryan said in his intro, like doing it again with the free kick, then kind of alluding to how Spurs do this very often in his post-match interviews, saying, like, I don't know why we keep doing this. I don't know why we keep losing the way we do or losing points the way we do. It doesn't really make sense. And that's where, Graham, I'm curious to go back to one of your points. Like, what do you think it is that has made Liverpool supporters start to lose faith in Slot? Is it that sort of giving up points when they shouldn't? Is it the lack of kind of cohesive performances from the team? Is it something else entirely?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. It's not just one thing that fans, I think, are blaming Arne Slot for. You could, just to go back quickly to, not so that I make clear it's not just my friends who are unhappy. I think there's a broader thing going on here. You know, there was booze at full time. You don't have friends, we know. Mm-hmm. That's right, I just made those up. You can, you could definitely sense the reaction inside the stadium and also some of the reaction online after the game. That Liverpool fans are getting fed up. They're getting fed up with Slot. I think he had credit in the bank after last season. I kind of feel like that's
you think he would, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but someone put it to me that Liverpool have now been... This feels like the tipping point where last season they kind of slid down the mountain at this point of last season. And so from this point on, Liverpool have been bad for more time than they've been good under Arne Slot, if that makes any sense, because they did tail off pretty dramatically towards the end of last season. So I think a lot of that credit is now gone. Obviously, we don't know how Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards feel, and they're the decision makers. I guess it's their opinion that matters most. But I've noticed a lot of the moderates have now turned against Slot because they see a team that doesn't really have a clear style of play. Right there, I saw Grace Robertson, who's a very good newsletter writer. I think she's a Liverpool fan. She was pointing out, like, what is Slot building towards here? Like, if you give Slot more freedom to mould this team in his image, what does this team look like in 18 months to 2 years' time? And I think it's a good question. I don't think we really know what Slot wants because obviously last season he did a good job of not changing too much and kind of sticking with Klopp's framework. But the consequence of that now is they're sort of stuck in this no man's land between that Klopp style and the possession style that Slot supposedly favours. And now we see a team that's making like the same mistakes over and over again with no real lessons being learned. I think perhaps the most concerning thing is the lack of intensity. I saw someone I know who I know for a fact has inside info. Even though this was on a public forum, I'm not going to out him on this show.
Is it Michael Owen?
It wasn't Michael Owen, no. It's someone who used to be a journalist who used to cover Liverpool and who would know these kind of things. But he's no longer in the job, so I don't want to out him. But he was tweeting about when Slot eventually leaves, there's going to be stories about a lack of intensity in training and a lack of instruction, and how players are unhappy playing for him right now. They're unhappy with the level of training. There's obviously been little hints here and there, the biggest one being Mohamed Salah. Excuse me. Mohamed Salah.
What a combo.
That's a portmanteau of the problems Liverpool are dealing with right now.
It is indeed. Yeah. It is indeed. Obviously, we had the Salah episode at the end of last year before he goes to AFCON. So there's been little hints here and there. But it does look like a team that is unsure of itself. And that manifested itself in just how hesitant they were in the second half of this game, where you can't really point to like a big blunder from Liverpool that leads to the Spurs goal. But instead of putting his head through it or taking a touch, Andy Robertson does a kind of half header that goes to a Spurs player. Yeah. Virgil van Dijk is a little bit too close to Robertson, so his positioning's a little bit off at that moment. He doesn't physically match up well to Richarlison, so it's just not a team that's playing with a lot of conviction right now. And it's a huge week for Liverpool, with not just with this game, but with the Galatasaray second leg. And I think if they were to lose that, and I think Galatasaray, as we saw in the first leg, will pose them problems, it would not surprise me if this situation spiralled quite quickly for Liverpool.
That said, we've also seen Galatasaray find a way to let teams come back into ties. So maybe that's the cure-all, the tonic that Liverpool need. But Graham, I agree with everything you said about them. It felt for all the world like a team that, like, this is perhaps an oversimplification or pointing out a very obvious thing, but just like weren't expecting to lose the ball when they did. And you'll see that from time to time when teams expect to be able to retain the ball such that they can get into their kind of attacking shape that they want to be in for possession. And then they lose the ball, and everyone's just like, wait, no, that's not what's supposed to happen. And for the equalizer, Szoboszlai like never gets goal side and is criticized for that on the broadcast. But to me, it's because he has made the sort of out-supporting run to be wide, to be an option over, and now has to kind of like, wait, what? We lost the ball? We didn't retain things? What's going on? And has to try to get back quickly. And that happened over and over again for Liverpool in the second half. They just looked like a team that didn't have the confidence they tend to have, didn't have the belief in how they wanted to attack, and even when they did attack with numbers, didn't seem quite like they knew what they wanted to do. And you see that in the final minute or final couple minutes when they have a 4-on-2 and don't really do anything with it. There was just so much hesitancy, and then just poor play on top of that. I like Mohamed Salah as a player. I thought this was the worst he's looked, and that's saying something because he has had some bad performances this season and last. But he looked borderline like he had the yips in this game, where he just like is underhitting shots, overhitting shots, misplacing passes, making the wrong decisions. He just was not helping in this game, and to have him come on as an impact sub, he's meant to be just that. A person who's going to have an impact, you would assume positively for Liverpool, but in this game, the opposite was the case.
Graham, coming back to that idea you mentioned of a lack of intensity and things not being at the level they should be, and we'll protect that source of yours, by the way, who has been tweeting, as you mentioned. So,
I know.
Don't worry about that.
It's a close confidential source.
But I just wondered if he'd had a few, commisseratory drinks after the game and was tweeting what he knew. So I don't want to.
Kurgan Zlop.
So, obviously, it's difficult to defend a title. It's difficult once you've reached the top of the tree to keep it going the season after, right? So, let me ask you this question. If Liverpool hadn't spent, 400 million plus on new players this season, would we give them more of a pass that they're basically in that Europa League, Conference League kind of zone at the moment? Are we giving Slot a harder time because of the money they spent this season or because of, the intensity issues and stuff you might expect from a title-winning team?
I don't know. I've got mixed thoughts on that, Ryan, because honestly, I'm kind of surprised, not to be contrarian about this, but I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been more criticism of Liverpool considering how much money they've spent on players. And so I think they've been cut some slack, certainly with players like Alexander Isak, who's just out injured at the moment as a non-factor. He's basically been given a free pass for the whole season, which is right. Obviously, he can't play. But players like Florian Wirtz as well, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, I feel like the narrative around them has been, they're integrating to a new league, into a new team. And I think we've seen players be jumped on much more quickly. Big name, big money signings have been jumped on more quickly than they have this season. I think we have, obviously, with Liverpool, we've seen them have these kind of fallow seasons before, right, where it's difficult for them to maintain the intensity. But that's where it feels like Slot has to impose his own style, his own methods on this team, because previously they would have those fallow years because that was the way Klopp ball was, right? That was the way gegenpressing was, heavy metal football, whatever you want to call it. And so those, they were tolerated because it was essentially like Liverpool re-energising to go again the next following season. And I don't know if there's faith that Liverpool are going to do that next year, because we don't have the evidence with Slot. We just don't have the body of work to suggest that's how it's going to go for them. But also, there's not that clear identity that there was under Klopp, where you could say, well, the thing that's missing is the intensity. I feel like there's a number of issues here. One of them is what Taylor was talking about, where like in the final third of the pitch, players having the yips and making bad decisions, and that's been going on for so long that it's kind of difficult to explain what's going on there. Like Ekitike racing through on goal and not really doing anything with that shot in the final attack, which feels very un-Hugo Ekitike. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of confusion around the way Liverpool are going right now, and I think a lot of fans are taking their frustration out on Arne Slot, which may be just. I think it should be said, this has been a dreadful title defence by Liverpool. They're down in what, 6th place? And so it's understandable as defending Premier League champions that they should be under pressure. That's how it goes. 5th place, Ryan. Is that right?
Yeah.
Point still stands.
While we're correcting things, I need to point out, we had this conversation 2 weeks ago, maybe, when I forget what Man United player it was who went down, maybe exaggerating, maybe emphasizing the contact. And I think Ryan and I had a disagreement about whether that's a dive versus embellishment. Mm-hmm. And I think we saw in this game the justification for embellishment when Richarlison is through on goal. And it basically has like Virgil van Dijk applying all of the physical leverage to his body. Richarlison ends up getting the shot away, and so the penalty isn't given. It's not called back. But it would have been a penalty if he just threw himself to the ground. And I credit to him for not and trying to fight through, but it's that weird moment when he fights through and gets the shot away, so the penalty isn't given. But if he just fell over, it probably would have been. And I always find that moment so odd, because it's a credit to him that he shows the strength to kind of handle a Virgil van Dijk challenge for as long as he does, but at the same time it doesn't really lead to anything, which is an important point to note that then Ryan Bailey is wrong.
Well, that's the story of my life, Taylor. I'm not
and Ryan has no follow-ups to that, so that's important too.
Indeed. There we go. Liverpool 1, Tottenham 1. Tottenham are now 1 point above the relegation zone on 30 points. You'd think with 8 games to go, they probably need, 10 more points to see this thing out? So based on this game with better defensive discipline, maybe Tottenham fans have got a bit more belief going into those final 8 games. And time will tell. Maybe Igor Tudor will recognise his colleagues as the games continue. Let's take a quick break. When we come back. We'll see. When we come back, more Premier League. We've got the Bundesliga, all the rest of Europe. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the weekend review. Let's go to Old Trafford, where Man United got a very good 3-1 win over Aston Villa. Mateus Cunha and Benjamin Sesko striking in the final 20 minutes to give Man United that much-needed win, keeping them in 3rd. Villa 3 points behind in 4th at this point. Taylor, since he was named head coach for the remainder of the season in January, Michael Carrick has now guided his side to 7 wins in 9 games. Give him the job for life. Yeah?
I did have in my notes, okay, but for real, how bad was Ruben Amorim? Let's talk about it some more.
For real.
Because I'm still not sure with Carrick. I think there were justifiable concerns about some of the way they've been playing and some of the kind of return of the old lethargy, for lack of a better way of putting it. But we didn't see that in this game. I am not going to go the Solskjaer route of he won a bunch of games. Give him the deal and see what happens. I think caution is a good thing, but it does seem like Carrick has gotten some of the kind of fighting spirit back, some of the punch when you've been punched energy that Manchester United have had in days of old. And I think you could see that in this game. I think also the chemistry was really palpable in a way that it hasn't been in quite some time. Casemiro, obviously leaving at the end of the season. It doesn't seem like they're going to renew his deal or offer him any sort of extension, but he's immense again. He has mistakes throughout, don't get me wrong, but is still so good at finding runners through from deep, at connecting kind of passes from defense into attack, and just being a calming presence, but then also obviously has very good rapport with Bruno Fernandes. There's a really good clip that was doing the rounds of just focusing on Bruno for the assists for both goals, and it stays with him. And just the way he's like, we did it again, man, as Casemiro comes running towards him with the 3 times. 3 times we've done this. I like that chemistry. The crowd were very much behind Casemiro in this one, and it just felt like there was just good vibes across the board. Cunha seemed to be so ecstatic when Šeško scored. And that was another one where Bruno had been talking to him like moments before about mobility in the box. So it feels like this is a team that have come together a bit, have kind of rediscovered some fighting spirit and maybe just enthusiasm for playing the game. And I think when you have a player like Bruno Fernandes, it's kind of easy to have some of the pressure come off because he can apparently pull strings from nowhere and break David Beckham's single-season assist record. Not a small feat there.
Yeah, he's an incredible player. Bruno Fernandes stating the obvious there, but I think he's at such a level now that he's probably the best player in the Premier League, and I think he should be a genuine contender for player of the season. And for Manchester United, this was clearly a big step towards Champions League qualification. They now have a bit of a cushion to the other teams in contention for the top five. Obviously, Chelsea losing, Liverpool drawing, obviously beating Villa here. So it was a good weekend for Manchester United, and by and large, they were the better team in this game. There was a period in the second half where it felt like Villa might have tipped the momentum towards them just after the equaliser. The defending for the Barkley equaliser I thought was a bit messy inside the Manchester United box. Tammy Abraham also had a chance after that equaliser where he might have had a shot with a slightly better touch, but that moment passed, and I know the XG was even from this game. I don't really know if Villa can have many complaints about this outcome. I thought Manchester United were quite fundamentally better. And similar to what you were saying, Taylor, about Manchester United now punching teams more regularly, we can never know this for certain, but I just doubt United would have won this match under Ruben Amorim. Because we've seen, but the way that, obviously in terms of results, they didn't win many matches under Ruben Amorim, but I mean, in terms of the flow of the match, the pattern of the match, after that it goes to 1-1, I feel like Ruben Amorim would have been much more cautious, and we saw him as Manchester United manager make a habit of changing defenders for defenders, and that was how he wanted to try and turn games in Manchester United favour. And we've seen under Carrick a consistent desire to go for wins, and it suits these players who are at their best when they're playing on the front foot, when they're allowed a little bit more freedom. And I do think that's part of the candidacy for Michael Carrick to get this job permanently. I stand by what I said in the early days. Let's wait until the end of the season. Let's see who's available. Thomas Tuchel's already out of the running. Ancelotti, I believe, signed a new contract with Brazil, so the options are dwindling. But nonetheless, there's a lot to like about what Michael Carrick has done for this team on and off the field. One of the things I like about Michael Carrick, Taylor, you might agree or disagree with this. He's been in the job for, 2 months, just over 2 months now. I can't think of a single memorable or notable thing he has said in a press conference or in a post-match or pre-match. I know that sounds like a weird thing to praise, but I think when you're a Manchester United manager, and the same goes for Real Madrid manager, I think, like Ancelotti and Zidane never said anything memorable in a press conference. You don't want to be adding fuel to the flames in that sense, and Carrick just never says anything that creates any headlines, that doesn't add any further pressure to his players, and Ruben Amorim was the worst for that. So it's just one of the things that I do quite like about this Carrick reign so far.
He coaches like he played. Like, it's the same thing as he was when he was a player, where he was kind of constantly overlooked as being a critical part in how those Manchester United teams would attack and create and retain the ball. But you look at the kind of bigger marquee names and forget just how good he was. It feels like he's doing the same thing here with Manchester United as manager, and he's had opportunity. As I said, the class of 92 sort of very publicly criticizing him. Paul Scholes especially calling him out and talking about how he hasn't been very good. That, for all the world, could have been what did you make of that? Oh, I didn't love what he said, but he's entitled to his opinion. But then it kind of comes back and it kind of keeps reverberating and it gets bigger and bigger. It feels like he sidestepped that, or maybe was just treated with kid gloves, I guess, depending on your perspective, because it does seem like he's a popular person with the media at present. We'll see how long that lasts. But I agree with you, Graham. It feels like he has done sensible things and maintained a sensible, steady hand, and I think empowered the players at the same time.
That is the key then to being a successful Manchester United manager. Say things in press conferences that are so generic that no journalist will even write about them. That's it.
I mean, kind of.
It's true, though. You make a good point. It's very true. It's very true. He hasn't stepped out above the parapet for that reason. I think it's a very good point. All right, Man United doing very well, looking like they're securing that top 4 place at this rate. Arsenal, meanwhile, looking like they're securing that Premier League title with a 2-0 win at Everton, a couple of late goals here. Substitute Victor Gyökeres breaking the deadlock in the 89th minute, and then 16-year-old Max Daumann becoming the youngest scorer in Premier League history, keeping Arsenal 9 points clear at the top. And just to clarify, Graham, the picture we've seen of Max Dowman with his mother, it's not his mother.
That was AI slop. But you did Google just to check.
I had to check.
Yeah, if you're not on social media, you'll have no idea what we're talking about.
Now I'm doing some Googling.
I'm not going to explain it. Do we think this was the weekend that Arsenal effectively won the Premier League title? 9 points clear. I know City have a game in hand, so that could become 6 points, although they're in poor form at the moment, so that isn't guaranteed. And I just wonder if that Max Dowman, the second goal in this game, the breakaway goal, is that Arsenal's Makeda moment? Is that the moment that's going to be remembered as the match, the moment that effectively won them the title? I think there's a good chance that it is.
I think Max Dowman would be real bummed if he went the way of Federico Makeda. But
Yeah,
I agree with you,
true.
Graham. I agree with the sentiment of what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
I do, because I think I'm the one of the three, like of you, me, and Joe, who has been the holdout when it comes to Arsenal. I've been saying I felt like City were going to end up putting together a run and Arsenal would kind of have a bobble, and they did, but they seem to have handled it quite well. This does feel like the result that fully cements it. I don't see how they give this one up, especially with the way City have looked and the issues they're dealing with. It feels like this was like the result that really cements it, at least for me. But I think for maybe others as well. And I do love that it's a youngster coming through and Dowman making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about Max Dowman last week, and I was bullish then, and even more so now, because I think this kid is going to be one of the best players in the world. He changed the game when he came off the bench, and Arsenal needed a spark from somewhere. Bukayo Saka is out of form at the moment, so he's not providing it right now. And Dowman comes on, and I said this after the Mansfield game. That's one thing, to then do it in a bit of a knife edge game for Arsenal, where Everton had opportunities. They were very difficult to break down. I didn't really sense that there was an Arsenal goal coming in this game. So it's one thing to do it against Mansfield, but to then come on in this game and play with such authority for 16 years old is just unreal. He always wants the ball. There's a cockiness to his play that means like he can really impose himself. Obviously, the first goal, Pickford helps by flapping at the cross, but the ball is still a really good cross to the back post, and Arsenal clear out that space on the right side for Dowman to then get it in. Like, they trusted him to create something in that crucial moment of the game. And then the second goal is just so good. And I know Pickford is up for the corner, but Dowman still has a lot to do to first take the touch, because it's like a bouncing ball and he has to take it with his head, and then dribble past two players, and then obviously once he's into the opposition half, it's easy. But every second, I saw it slowed down on social media. Every touch is perfection to create that little sequence. And then the limbs behind the goal when Dowman's like going over to the corner flag. I kind of feel like that might be the defining image of Arsenal's titles. I think going to be successful title challenge this season. So it was a big moment in the title race.
Yeah, very much so. And Arsenal have a game, Man City have a game in hand over Arsenal, I should say. Arsenal played 31 at this point. So let's say that Arsenal would have to drop 6 points to let this go with 7 games to go. It doesn't feel like they're going to do
that. Well, not only that, but the reason I've been quite bullish on Arsenal all the way through, even through the wobble, is I just don't see City stringing together like 8 wins in a row. Like they're dropping points all over the place as well. So, yes, I think it is going to be Arsenal's season.
Did you see the Pep interview on that front, Graham, when they were like, you said if you don't win today that you've lost the title? And he was like, who said this? Who said this? And she was like, you did in your pre-match comments. She's like, oh no! Like it was a very good moment of like, no, I don't know who could possibly be saying such things.
There's a way of dealing with that question that we've learned over here in the United States. You ask which outlet are you from, and they tell you, and you say you're terrible and you are a disgraceful news organization. That's how you get out of that question. Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah,
easy
somehow that seems to keep working.
Yes, no follow-ups. No follow-ups. That's the way it goes. West Ham 1, Man City 1. The aforementioned Man City dropping points here again. Bernardo Silva opening the scoring for City with a lovely chip he definitely meant to score with. We can all agree on that. West Ham responding to get the point with Konstantinos Mavropanos heading home his first goal in 3 years. Off the crossbar as well. Always makes a goal better when it's off the crossbar. That's just the rules. And Mavropanos obviously taking a shot to the face from Erling Haaland as well, which there is a still out there, listener, on the internet of the ball kind of recessed halfway into itself from a point-blank Erling Haaland shot. I think that hurt, Graham.
Yeah, must have done. But I guess the point was worth it for Mavropanos and West Ham. Obviously, West Ham's performance here was defensive-minded, but they really are starting to play Nuno ball. We're seeing real signs of progress from them with how close together they stay in the middle of the pitch, and that then made it difficult for City to play through them. I thought Todibo and Mavropanos did a really decent job of matching up physically against Haaland and taking balls to the face from Haaland in Mavropanos' instance. And he was first for interceptions and clearances. He was second for duels and aerial duels, one of which was for the West Ham equaliser, which was, Donnarumma flapping at that corner kick, as he is prone to doing, helps with that equaliser. But nonetheless, West Ham took their opportunity. And it wasn't like they created loads of chances to score. I wouldn't even say they posed a great threat in transition, which is where I thought they might actually hurt Manchester City. But they kind of levelled the game defensively and then took their chance when it came. And they seem to be doing more of that certainly against the big teams, West Ham. So even though I think they still find themselves in the bottom 3 on goal difference, I feel quite bullish about West Ham's chances of staying up now. It feels like it's narrowed to Spurs, Nottingham Forest and West Ham, and of those 3 I am most confident that West Ham are going to be clear of danger.
Yeah, they were out of the bottom 3 for the first time since December on Saturday. That lasted just one day because Nottingham Forest picked up a point on Sunday. More on that game on Weekend Review Extra. One more Premier League game to touch on this feed. Chelsea 0, Newcastle 1. A rare win for Newcastle at Stamford Bridge. This was Anthony Gordon with the goal. Most of the headlines, Graham, being taken by what happened before kickoff. The traditional huddle that Liam Rosinia's team seemed to be doing. They decided to do it on the centre circle where the referee stands with the ball, surrounding the referee for a good 20 seconds or so. Cole Palmer trying to get the referee involved by putting his arm around him because Cole Palmer is the greatest person in the world. We must protect him at all costs. But an odd decision from Chelsea to do their huddle and have the referee stand in the middle of them. Because, for one thing, the referee hears everything they're saying.
Yeah, it's one of the most bizarre things I've seen for a while in the Premier League. And I didn't watch this game live, so I saw the clip after the fact. I thought it looked like AI slop. I thought it was like Max Dowman's mum. So it's weird that it was a weird thing. And I've seen people take it way too seriously, saying like Chelsea are a disgrace for treating an official like this. I've seen the other side as well, with people angry that Paul Tierney would have the audacity to stand in the middle of the pitch. That seemed to be the match of the day talking point last night or 2 nights ago. Wayne Rooney seemed to be very unhappy about it. I personally thought it was just a bit weird and very funny, but then Rosinia's explanation afterwards was just too linked in for me, and so that did tip me over the edge into anger. Where he said,
"Can I read it? Oh, you go on,
Ryan. Have you got? No, you've got it prepared.
I've got it here. My players made a decision that they wanted to be around the ball to respect the ball. Yeah,
no, not having it.
Yeah.
Not having it." I want to treat.
Hang on, are you saying the ball doesn't deserve respect, Graham? Come on.
I'm so conflicted here. I want to treat Liam Rosinior with respect and with grace, but also there's so much about him that gives me the ick. I cannot lie. The way he speaks about certain things, and that's one of them.
I've alluded to it 3 times now, but I saw reports today that there's reports from the Chelsea dressing room and the Chelsea board that he might not be the man for next season. Do you feel like it was that quote, Graham, that they were like, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of this. I don't care for this anymore.
Well, they found out that he's used AI for it, like most LinkedIn posts. It was the hyphens that gave it away. There's there's a few hyphens in that statement.
It was
this is not about the referee. This is about respect.
Yeah, exactly.
Classic LinkedIn AI slop.
There's one or two common phrases used slightly incorrectly but too comfortably that you're like, a machine wrote this. He's half machine. We know this.
Yeah. Can I say we'll touch on Forest Fulham in the bonus feed, but they had a banner at City Ground this week, and I don't know if anyone saw it. It said, "We hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off." We hope anybody's not stupid enough.
Are we sure this isn't? There's a lot of AI chat in this episode today. Are we sure? I saw that as well and was like, "Oh, that's AI. Surely that's someone having a laugh at."
I saw several different angles of the picture.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that was real.
So I don't know if that's AI grammar or just Nottingham grammar, but we hope anybody's not stupid enough.
When Montana, the state, decided to do a public campaign combating meth addiction and meth usage, do you know what their slogan was?
I do not.
To acknowledge the problem. Giant billboards. Meth. We're on it. It's like, you guys didn't think about that one, did you? That's not a great way to... Yeah, I mean, I guess so. That's worrying signs for the Montana government. It's a little bit like the the Tom and Greg in Succession. We here for you.
We here for you.
Yeah.
Actually, on the way
vibes.
to High Point, North Carolina, to see the Carolina Core this weekend, I saw a mural on the side of the building, and it said, "Hey, comma, you fit in." And it reminded me of the importance of commas, because if it was "Hey, you, comma, fit in," it would have been quite a different message. So there you go. Grammar is important. That's the moral. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We hope anybody's not stupid enough to join us in part 3, where we're talking about the Bundesliga, Serie A, Spain, and NWSL starting up. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back. Why don't we go to Germany right now? The Bundesliga saw Bayer Leverkusen draw 1-1 with Bayern Munich. Bayern coming from behind and finishing with 9 players as well. Luis Diaz, who scored the equaliser, sent off for a second yellow card. And Nicholas Jackson getting a red card in the 42nd minute as well. Taylor, we got some chaos we don't often see from Bayern here. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. This was a game this weekend that had me like, oh, right. Soccer can be fun. I'm really down on the Premier League, is I think what the takeaway from this episode should be. Because you go from this game, which is wild and chaotic and back and forth, and obviously the red cards play a part in that. But even with those 2 red cards, there was such a sense of Bayer Leverkusen, like, we know what happens when we go forward against Bayern. We're not supposed to be doing this. We know that it leaves us exposed, but, like, we have a 2-man advantage. We have to try, right? Like, you could tell how uncomfortable they were every time they attacked, but they knew they had to attack. But it led to this sort of wide open game where even when Bayern were trying to be defensively solid, they would still be like, oh, but we're Bayern. We have to attack. 6 men forward right now. Like, it was just end-to-end, back and forth. The chaotic finish with the disallowed goal from VAR because it was like a half an inch offside felt brutal, but also appropriate for how chaotic this whole game was. And then you switch over to the Premier League where everyone is just like, don't, we must keep 98% ball retention or we'll be yelled at by the manager in the post-match. Like, it just was a stark juxtaposition between the two. But this game was really fun. It had, like, genuine moments of levity and enjoyment, like Jonathan Tah, who made so many appearances for Leverkusen, Leverkusen obviously hosting. He pulled a Sheringham and tried to go to the wrong dressing room after warm-ups and then had to remember and run to the other side. He nearly scores a goal that is called back, I think, for an unintentional handball, but he doesn't celebrate there. Then I believe he's involved in a deflected goal later on. It was a pretty chaotic game for him. It was a good goal from Alex Garcia to get things started. It was the red cards. It was the equalizer for Bayern. It was Bayern still feeling like they could even get one more despite being 2 men down. It had everything you want in a game. It was very, very fun.
Yeah, I could only catch highlights of this match, but when I watched the highlights package, I swear about half of what I watched was the referee talking to the crowd after a VAR decision. Yes. I was like, I actually questioned whether it was on loop, like whether the highlights package had messed up and they were going back to the referee again, because there was a lot for him to handle, including the Nicholas Jackson red card, which I don't know if you've seen the freeze frame of who's that? It's Andrik, the Leverkusen player. Yeah, the freeze frame of his ankle just buckling under the tackle. And if you look at his face is completely deadpan. His face doesn't know yet. That pain is about to hit him any second. It's quite disturbing.
He had a lot of pain, Endrick, in this game, because he's the one who gifts the ball to Michael Elise that sets up the Bayern equalizer. He basically just passes it straight to Elise. Elise plays it diagonally through like 4 players to Harry Kane, who scores. Does anyone know how long Harry Kane had been on the pitch?
Like a minute or something like
22 seconds.
There we go.
From subbing on to scoring. Because that's just how it works for Harry Kane to the Bundesliga. It is a rule he must score. My one negative that I will mention, though I feel like at a certain point it just, like, I worry it's, what's the thing where you, like, maybe you only notice the theory, and so you're only paying attention to your argument of the theory, and you're not really paying attention to things that might disprove it. I forget what it's called.
I forget.
Something bias. But I worry that I have it. Bias. Yes, confirmation bias. I worry that I have that with Malik Tillman. But he has another Malik Tillman moment in this game. It's in the second half. He is basically played in from his own half on a breakaway. So it is like 70 yards he has to run with the ball. Maybe he's tired by the end. He does have defenders catching up to him. But it's still one where you want so much for him to finish that, or at the very least hit the frame. And he shoots it wide. And it's that moment that we've seen from him going back to PSV, but this season as well with Leverkusen. that makes me feel like he just hasn't made that jump that I want to see him make. I don't know if I'm on camera for that one. Not even to like be in the Florian Wirtz conversation, but you just want him to be a more consistent finisher or creator in that moment. And it's another one of like where he should be hitting the target or should be putting it in the back of the net. He kind of scuffs his shot wide, and it feels like that might end up being a big miss, and it was because Bayern equalized shortly thereafter.
Okay. Taylor, would you like to
Yes.
give us any other highlights of the Bundesliga before we move on, sir?
I would love to, because there were many this weekend. It was a fun weekend and a great narrative weekend at that. In Union Berlin's 1-0 win on the road, a game that it did not feel like they were going to win against, I believe, Freiburg. They have a sort of out of nowhere goal. They were very much against their run of play, and then they're defending for their lives. And Matteo Raab, their reserve goalkeeper, who's in due to injury, comes for a ball, looks for a moment like he is going to concede a penalty because he makes contact with a defender, but it seems like gets enough of the ball, but in his punch also, I believe, hits one of his teammates as he comes down. Definitely looked to have broken his hand, or at least broken a finger, but at that point, Union are out of substitutions, and he's the reserve goalkeeper, so he stays in. He has to have somebody like help him keep his fingers straight as he puts his gloves back on, and then has a ridiculous save. Like this is going top corner. The shot, it for all the world is going to be an equalizer. And he like is backpedaling, reaches back and just tips it over the bar, and then stands up and like punts the post. He is so hyped for it, and you can just tell the adrenaline is overpowering the broken finger. That was an amazing moment. Luca Reggiani scoring for Borussia Dortmund. He gets their second in a win. He's an 18-year-old, I believe, Italian defender playing for them. It's his first ever, I believe, professional goal, but certainly his first ever goal for Dortmund. And just the joy and exuberance on his face. And then he does the thing where he goes to celebrate with his teammates and then realizes, like, no, you're not who I want to celebrate with, and sprints to hug. I wrote the guy's name down. Let me see if I can find it very briefly while I talk, because it's clearly somebody that he's been like coming through the academy with, has played with for a long time. It is Samuel Inacio, a 17-year-old teammate who was on the bench, but the two of them running, jumping, and like embracing in midair as though like we did it together. It was just a very great moment of like, oh right, this can be fun and enjoyable, and there are nice moments, human moments within the game. Dennis Undav continues to be an exceptional player for Stuttgart. He gets another goal sort of given to him by the goalkeeper, but all the same, he continues his scoring streak, which would be a bigger story if it weren't for Harry Kane scoring every 22 seconds. But Dennis Undav, the highest scoring German in the Bundesliga, he keeps that going. Really interested to see if he is playing or starting for Germany at the World Cup. And lastly, there's a huge win for Gladbach. Joe Scally, very involved in the second goal, does well to keep a ball alive and then find a teammate to score. They seem well on their way to safety now. They're out of the relegation zone, 2 wins in the last 3. They seem like they've figured some things out. So it will be maybe some of the more conventional teams contesting relegation as we come towards the close of the Bundesliga season.
Ganz gut. Vielen Dank für eure Zeit, Herr Taylor.
Ja.
Fantastisch. Let's move on to Spain, shall we? And the Liga, Graham, where both the top two teams got big wins. Where should we start? Real Madrid 4, Elche 1. Arda Güler scoring from inside his own half pretty casually in this one.
Yeah, that was the highlight of the game, his strike from inside his own half, which is surely going to be a Puskas nominee. It's one of the goals of the season, because it's not even like one of those goals where the goalkeeper is up for a corner and he, like the Max Dowman one obviously is great, but Pickford is in the opposition half. He just spots the Elche goalkeeper off his line and goes for it, and it's an incredible strike. And as I say, that was the highlight of the match. The scoreline sort of flattered Real Madrid a little bit because they didn't create a massive number of clear-cut opportunities, and Elche posed more of a threat than their one goal suggested. At the same time, this is still a significant improvement on what we were seeing, from Madrid like even a few weeks ago. Valverde was excellent again. He's now scored 5 goals in his last 3 games. It's another incredible finish into the top corner. I also really like Thiago Pitarch in the central midfield unit and the nimbleness that he gives Madrid in possession. I think there is a comparison to be made, obviously not in terms of his level of what he's achieved, but in terms of skill set. Watch him, and he very much looks like Luka Modric. Like, he likes to start in a deep position and then kind of like progress up the field in the way that Modric does. So he's got that mobility. He's very technically able. I think Real Madrid might have a player on their hands there. And we spoke about this last week, but it's just easier to impose a coherent game plan when you don't have Bellingham and Mbappe to fit into the team alongside Vinicius. So right now, with those two players out, Real Madrid are looking as good as they've looked all season ahead of that second leg against Manchester City. The question is, what happens when those two superstars come back? Because I just have no faith that they'll be able to fit into this team and continue to play this way. But for right now, it's positive.
There we go. Positive for Barcelona as well. A 5-2 win over Sevilla. Pretty dominant from them, keeping their 4-point lead at the top of the Liga. So with 10 games to go, Barcelona are on 70, Real Madrid on 66, Graham.
Yeah, and it was a busy weekend for Barcelona because they had their presidential election, which Joan Laporta won in a landslide. I do always enjoy seeing the active and former players line up to cast their votes. So you had Busquets and Aitana Bonmati. Ter Stegen, I don't know if you guys saw this on social media. Yeah. He was turned away. So he's on loan at Girona. So he's on the books of Barcelona, a former captain, and he was not on the list, and they had to turn him away, which felt very cruel. And also, again, don't know if you've seen any of the footage, but Laporta standing at the ballot box, watching over every prominent figure casting their vote. Like, he walks Hansi Flick to the ballot box to vote. Like, I don't know. I know anything goes in elections these days, but that's felt a little bit off to me, Taylor.
Yeah, well, Hansi Flick, while shaking, read a note that said, I don't feel comfortable continuing on if Laporte isn't here anymore.
Yeah.
He's got my dog. I've got to say these things.
I hurt my hand in a boating accident.
Exactly. And I will behave now.
Yeah, so election etiquette maybe not in top standard for Barcelona, but that is now settled. So Barcelona now have some off-field stability. And Sunday's match was also the first time that the full second tier has been open at the Camp Nou. So it felt much more like a football stadium again, and not just a building site. This was their biggest attendance of the season by a distance. And then in the game itself, Flick was able to rotate his squad a bit with that second leg against Newcastle in mind. There was a debut for the much-hyped Javi Espar at right-back. He looked comfortable enough. Lamine Yamal started on the bench. In came Rooney Bargi, which he was productive off the right side. Lewandowski had a bit of a stinker in front of goal, which has been the way of things for him recently. It's all but certain that he is leaving at the end of the season. That's going to be a big storyline in the summer, is who Barcelona go for as a new number 9. Okay. But Rafinha, he was the headline act with a hat-trick. 2 of them from the penalty spot, but nonetheless, he was in top form, and Barcelona were clearly the stronger team ahead of that big second leg against Newcastle.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Graham. Quick jaunt to Italy, where Milan fell to Lazio on Sunday in the big game after Gustav Isaksen struck in the first half. So Milan are now 8 points adrift of Inter at the top of the table. Now, this is one I previewed on the Weekender episode last week because I was very excited about the fan reaction. As a reminder, Lazio fans have been very much boycotting their team at protest against their owner. This is the one game they've all agreed to go to, so they packed out the house at the Olimpico for this one. They're not going to go to any more games this season. They've said this is it. This was the only one. And we were promised a presence that would make history from the fans. And I think that was just a pretty cool tifo in the end. That was it. It looked cool.
I mean, as Joe said last week, that is history. Like what we're doing right now, what our conversation is history. So I guess they weren't lying.
Yeah. It's true. Overstating maybe, but not lying. You're quite right. But there you go. They definitely. The moral might be that if you want to beat top of the table teams, have fans in your stadium because they got a good win here against Milan, of course. So well done to them for that. Inter did drop points. They got a 1-1 draw against Atalanta on Saturday. Napoli got a 2-1 win over Lecce. Højlund and Politano with the goals in that one. And Como, by the way, got a 2-1 win over Roma. Como are knocking on the door of Champions League soccer after basically last season, with 15 games to go, they looked like they're in trouble of going down. So very, very good stuff from Mr. Fabregas at Como as well. Keep an eye.
He's going to get a big job, isn't he, this summer? Where do we think he's going to go? Man City if Pep leaves? I feel like that could happen.
Could be. That's a good fit.
It would be a problem if he went to Real Madrid, right?
Yes, I think so.
The Catalan Barcelona stuff.
That's Poch's
He would
job.
do that. Yeah, good point.
Does he not have the same Catalan thing?
Yeah. And then Xabi Alonso's going to Liverpool. Is that where we are now?
Sure, why not?
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll find out, Taylor, when the merry-go-round starts up again in a few months' time. Can't hardly wait for that. One final thing, of course, NWSL started this weekend. We had some cool kits. We had some new teams. What did we have, Graham?
So I managed to catch the Orlando Pride versus Seattle Reign game on Sunday. Apparently TNT Sports in the UK are going to be carrying a Sunday game from the NWSL this season, so that's good, because otherwise it's a bit tricky for me to keep up with the league. I think Taylor might have watched some other games in the league, so I'll pass the mic to him afterwards. But In this game, I thought Orlando were a little bit unfortunate. Here, you could argue Seattle had the better of the first half, and Jess Fishlock, scored the first goal. Was linking up really well with Mia Fischel, who started really well, and Meza was a driving force from midfield as well. So I was impressed with Seattle in the first half. But then there was a long delay at halftime for lightning in the area, this game being played in Central Florida, so I'm familiar with that. And Orlando came out, I think, like an hour later for the second half. And to me, they looked like a different team. Barbara Banda had 2 or 3 chances in behind, one of which she converted to make it 1-1. And Banda's just such a threat with her running ability. She's an all-round forward player, obviously one of the best players in the league. She also put one on a plate for Castaigne in the second half that wasn't taken. And then Seattle sort of snatched it at the end with a header from Ratcliffe from a set piece. So it was an entertaining game. I mainly watched it for Barbara Branda. I take every opportunity to watch her that I can get. She's the main reason I decided to watch this match. And even though she ended up on the losing team, she didn't disappoint. That was one of my big takeaways, is Banda is going to have another excellent season.
As is tradition, were you rooting against Jess Fishlock? Because as we know, you refuse to support Wales.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, anyone Welsh, including Canadians and American billionaire owners who own teams by association. Yeah, they're struck off in my mind.
I have to say, this is a position I will say like born of ignorance. So I'm sure there are merits to it that I have not read about, and I welcome people's thoughts on it. I will try to keep up with them. I'm not sure I love the NWSL TV deal. I'm sure it is great for them. I'm sure it means more money. But to my understanding, there are games now on Amazon Prime, there are games on Paramount Plus, there are games on Ion, and there are games on Victory Plus. Apparently there's also some games in England once a week, so that's good. But as a result, it is kind of, you don't have like this central repository that I feel like I've come to expect from certain leagues where you can just go in, find all the games, find the replays, and watch what you want to watch. It was a little bit trickier, so I ended up watching 3 different games. I watched the opening night win for Portland on the road against the Washington Spirit, Trinity Rodman's Washington Spirit. I think that's part of the deal now. We have to say those two things in conjunction always. But I think it was a huge win for Portland because it did feel like for the Spirit with Rodman in there, there's a point to prove that they're still going to be this very strong team, even if they had to get rid of some pieces, maybe some central pieces at that. But instead, it feels like it's room for improvement and things to grow on from the Spirit, but a big win for Portland. Another good win for Gotham in a sort of unenjoyable game, in my opinion, against Debutante Boston, who have a player sent off. But this was another one where I watched after the Leverkusen-Bayern game, so maybe that factors into it. But there were moments of like good chaos and back and forth, and then I feel like both teams sort of about the 20th minute settled into like a cagier thing where neither one wanted to concede. Maybe both felt like they were fortunate not to have conceded and didn't really want to press the luck, and so it kind of got a little bit dull at times, in my opinion, but still a good win for Gotham to start the season off. And then we have a more chaotic game in Denver Summit versus Bay FC. Denver Summit's first game in the league, but it's Bay FC opening things up with Alex Pfeiffer, who I think just graduated high school. There was much made of that. She scores the opening goal. The Summit pull one back. Jordan Angeli, the wonderful and talented Jordan Angeli, they're celebrating on camera as Denver get their first goal. Melissa Klusler with a solid finish off of a great run and ball by Janine Sonis, who is then sent off minutes later for a VAR upgraded from a yellow to a red for an aggressive challenge. That definitely changes the nature of the game. Bay FC able to capitalize as a result, and they get the 2-1 win. A Bay FC team that did not have a very good season last year. So I think a necessary win to start things off. And for the Summit, I think lots to like about this performance. There was, I think, when Pfeiffer scores in the 8th minute, it felt like, ooh, this could be like a 5-0 opening expansion loss that we're all sort of like, yeah, they're an expansion team. They're going to try to figure it out. And instead, I think that they punch back and get the equalizer and then are sort of undone by the red card. Makes sense and mitigates things a little bit. But some good games in the NWSL, and I'm excited to watch more.
Definitely. I was pleased to see the first Summit goal also was on ESPN, Big Boy ESPN, several times over the weekend. I saw it in the only place I watch Big Boy ESPN, the gym.
I think ESPN might also have games as well, I think, for the broadcast schedule.
Yeah.
It's a little bit mixed. But again, I'm assuming it is better for the league and there's more money coming in, and that makes up for it for sure.
I'm sorry you feel that way about the broadcast deal, but as you know, Taylor, there are positive ions and negative ions. That's just science.
When did you write that joke?
While you were saying your thing.
Okay.
I can work on it a bit. We can chop it.
That was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, very good. But also, like other leagues you have to hunt around the schedule to find. Even on NBC, you have to find out where your game is at, right? It's not unique to NWSL.
And because we still use Fubo, I have to pray that it's not one of the games on NBC. Like with Liverpool Tottenham this weekend, I genuinely was like, yes, when it was available to watch on Peacock, because otherwise it would have been dodgy stream FC for me.
The weirdest one in the UK is the Saturday night La Liga game is on Disney Plus. And so the number of times that I sit down to watch a La Liga game and go, why is this game not on TV? And then have to put up Disney Plus and scroll past the Bluey episodes and everything my daughter's been watching to get to Real Sociedad versus Getafe.
Dude, that is... Whenever I load up Disney Plus and it doesn't go to Bluey, it becomes a problem for my youngest daughter, who cannot understand why the TV would be on and Bluey wouldn't be playing.
It doesn't make sense to have a TV for it not to do that. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, actually, Sunday I got Dad Soccer, and I said, yeah, and she went, which felt appropriate for the way I was feeling about the Premier League at that point.
Huh. Yeah, I've had that for many years in my house, from all members of my household, actually. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. But there you go. Weekend Review is now a thing. It's in the history books, as Lazio would like to say. We've got Weekend Review Extra coming on the bonus feed, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show to go and support us there and check out some more of the weekend. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed. We are both of us, under tornado warning as we record, so I hope you stay safe, sir.
Same to you, my friend. Same to you. Graham, quit complaining about your rain and your cold weather and whatnot.
Yeah.
You don't have winds and then snow and then 90-degree heat.
I'd love a tornado warning. I'd love to cosplay my Twisters fantasy with Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. That sounds like a great time to me.
Wonderful. The Twister ride at Universal Studios, I don't know if you went on it, Graham, but it had Bill Paxton saying, "Hi, I'm Bill Paxton. Prepare for the ride."
I'm very
if you're
familiar
alive,"
with
in the most
Twisters.
monotone way possible. It's great.
And the plastic cow.
The plastic cow.
Flies across the soundstage, yeah. Remember
Classic plastic cow. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much indeed. Listener, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this feed. We'll be back very shortly. We've got MLS action coming for you on Tuesday on the feed. But for now, bye!